Jai Shri Radhe, Jai Shri Krishna, Sab Vaishnav. Today is day 71, Varta 52, the story of one Seth who lived in Rajnagar. Bhav Prakash. This is a devotee of Rajasi disposition. In the eternal Leela, his name is Payonidhi, who manifests from Manaturi, and is thus a form of her divine loving mood. This Seth was born into a very wealthy businessman's home in Rajnagar. Once when Sri Gosaiji was in Rajnagar, that businessman and all his family members were initiated as Sri Gosaiji's disciples. When he left his body, his son, the Seth in this story, went to Gokul. He served Sri Gosaiji a lot. After some time, he requested Sri Gosaiji to grant him some seva of the Lord. Sri Gosaiji presented him with one swarupa of child Krishna, instructed him to serve very lovingly. Seth stayed in Gokul for some days to learn all the appropriate ways of seva, and then returned home to Rajnagar. He began to serve the Lord very nicely and would always feed Vaishnavas with Mahaprasad and provide for their needs if they were short of funds. Part 1. Once 10,000 Vaishnavas all came together to Rajnagar. They were on their way to Gokul. Seth sent them with 10,000 rupees to Sri Gosaiji in Gokul and also provided any penniless Vaishnava with funds. At home, Sri Thakurji was accepting lots of offerings. The Vaishnavas all partook of the Mahaprasad. They all began to praise Seth. The 10,000 Vaishnavas from Gujarat all came to Gokul. They praised Seth in front of Sri Gosaiji. At that time, Chacha Harimamsji and Nagji Bai were sitting by Sri Gosaiji. When the Vaishnavas began to praise Seth, then Chachaji, Nagji Bai and Sri Gosaiji all began to smile. Chachaji and Nagji Bai said to Sri Gosaiji, "O Maharaj, this Seth is your disciple and therefore deserves praise. However, when you hear his praise, you said nothing and glanced at us. So what did you mean by this?" Sri Gosaiji replied, This act of making donations can be of two types. In the first, the person making the offerings makes them generously with no anxiety over the costs involved. They make the donations modestly and humbly. The Lord is soon pleased with such a donor. The person who places great importance on the amount of money given is never granted humility. They want themselves to gain prestige when they praise their own act and show off about it, telling everyone about it too. This kind of arrangement never satisfies the Lord. There were amongst the 10,000 Vaishnavas present 4 who were of good intelligence and understanding. They supplicated. There were amongst the 10,000 Vaishnavas present 4 who were of good intelligence and understanding. They supplicated Sri Gosaiji, "Where we live, we know no one comparable to this Seth. Why were you not pleased to hear his praise?" Sri Gosaiji smiled and explained, "This righteous path of a Vaishnava is very difficult to grasp. It is very subtle. It cannot be understood by most. If you have the association of great devotees, then you will see through a discerning eye and know their inner heart, then you might understand." The 4 Vaishnavas again asked Sri Gosaiji, "Please tell us where to find such Vaishnavas and we will go and spend 4 days and nights with them." Sri Gosaiji told them, "There is a Kanojia Brahmin couple in Agra. Go to Agra and ask Santadas where they are." The 4 Vaishnavas left for Agra the next day after bowing to Sri Gosaiji. They reached Santadas's house at first. Santadas welcomed them very respectfully. He asked after Sri Gosaiji. He asked them the purpose of their travel to Agra. They replied, "Sri Gosaiji has sent us to meet a particular Vaishnava couple here." Santadas accompanied them to their house. He was wondering for which special purpose Sri Gosaiji had sent them to that couple, and decided that it was not his place to stay with the 4 Vaishnavas, and so he went home. The 4 Vaishnavas entered that house. The wife had just finished cooking. The husband had dressed and adorned the Lord and was making the lunch offerings to him before coming out of their temple. At this moment, the 4 Vaishnavas greeted them with the Lord's name. The husband inquired, "O Vaishnavas, where are you coming from?" They told him that they had just come from Gokul to visit them on Sri Gosaiji's instructions. Hearing the names of Gokul and Sri Gosaiji, the husband became very animated. He was in Aparas, but he ran to them and embraced them. He took the 4 of them to his home. He addressed the Vaishnavas, "I am heating up some water. Please take your bath here." The Vaishnavas replied that they would go to bathe in Sri Yamunaji and would like to have this holy sight of the Rajbhog Aarti, and said, "Thus please do just continue with your seva." The husband bathed back into seva and went inside the Sri Thakurji's temple. He said to his wife, "Sri Gosaiji has sent 4 Vaishnavas to us from Gokul. He has thus showered great grace upon us by thinking of us." The wife replied, "Sri Gosaiji is most kind to even remember such poor souls as us." She added, "We do not have enough ghee. I will start the lunchtime offerings whilst you meanwhile go to fetch some." The husband straightway left for the market, tucking a small bowl into his turban. When he reached the shop, The owner had just brought out all the fresh ghee and was straining it before putting it into a vessel. The Brahmin came there at that moment and said, "I need 1/4 of a kilo of ghee, please, quickly, please." The shopkeeper gave it to him. He came home happily. He was in so much bliss that he forgot to bathe or even take off his turban. He completed the preparations and entered the temple to complete the offerings. They were both contemplating in their hearts the way that the beloveds take their lunch. Thus totally absorbed, even the wife did not notice. When they had finished the offerings, they both stepped out of the temple. It was in this way, contemplating the Seva in Nanda's palace and in the Vraja Gopis' homes and also Vrishabhanu's home, that this couple would make their lunchtime offerings. Bhav Prakash. This story teaches us that Vaishnavas should make seva to the Lord in the mood of the Vraja devotees in order for their hearts to be fixed on him and the love between them and the divine beloved to become reciprocal. When a Vaishnava offers bhog, food preparations, they should contemplate on the way that the Lord takes his meals. This varies according to the season. In the cold season, Sri Thakurji eats at home in Nandale, and also sometimes he accepts an invitation to a Gopi's house where he has his meal. In the hot season, the contemplation is on the Lord's picnics on the banks of Sri Yamunaji, in the deep forest in places like Shamdak and others, where the Lord goes when he is looking after the grazing cows. There the Lord enjoys fun and games with the other cowherd boys. During that play, if he gets hungry, he climbs up in a tree to look for the gopi who is bringing him his lunch, and if she should have lost her way, he begins to play his flute, and this brings all the gopis with the picnic baskets on their heads to that place. As he eats, the Lord feeds pieces of food that have touched his lips to his cowherd friends. During these picnics, they all play many different games. Sometimes he grabs a morsel of food away from his friends' mouths just as they are putting it in, and they all laugh a lot. Sometimes he sends signals to the gopis to meet him later. These are the moods of contemplation for this period in this season.